Hello, welcome. It's time for the Hiphil. Before you open your book, let me show you a couple of things real quick. I'm going to save this one that you're not seeing. Yeah, okay. Save the blank verbs. I've made myself a template so that I don't have to switch over all the time or just redraw all the time. I can just switch over. Okay, so here we are, the drawing screen. The Hiphil, as you can see, is in the double causation uh, column way over to the right. So we're making a move over in the active row. What we're trying to do is now show how causation really works in a doubled kind of way. This will be the H stem, and the H stem indicates that you're going to have a prefixed hey, and that's going to be all the problem because, as you know, the hey has a way of disappearing. I've been calling it, for fun, the cloak and dagger hey. Because it disappears behind the curtains, so to speak, while you're at your dinner party and steals the microfilm and then slits your throat and leaves, right? Or whatever have you. This, it's the silliness of it all. But this is the H stem, and this is where, if you've been working at the whole notion of the hey simply leaving, like in the third hey or in the prefixed hey as the definite direct or definite article, then you'll have almost no problems here with the Hiphil. This is a kind of morphological sleight of hand, but everything is just as easy as it was last time. So let's switch back over to what I was doing earlier, the blank verbs. And there we have it. See, I don't have to draw them all out. Now, for the perfect, of course, we won't do two over in the plural side, but I'm going to give you the first form. Okay, so the Hiphil in the perfect is going to be a prefixed hey, like so, followed by a heroic, which is going to necessitate a closed syllable, which gives you the silent schwa, and then you're going to get an infixed heroic yod in the second syllable, Hiphil, like that. And now you can do the rest of them, right? I will give you one bit of advice before you pause. The infixed heroic yod is not an unchangeably long mater letter. It's an infixed heroic yod. So it works a little differently than it does in other places. So you can pause here, do the rest of them, and then either open your book or push play, and we'll see how we did. So now that you've unpushed pause, here is the perfect form. You're going to have, the hey prefix, schwa, infixed heroic yod, and the commate's hey. Where's the schwa, the vocal schwa? Well, just as you had in the hollow roots, because you have this infixed heroic yod, which doesn't really want to leave, you're going to get an accent shift instead of the vocal schwa, just like you had for kum. You get kum, you have kam, and then kama for the perfect of the third singular feminine. Okay, now what about the ones with the consonantal ending? So you're going to get the ta ending, the t ending, A form, and the T ending, or A form, right? That nice schwa there. Well, it's going to act a little differently, but you might not be surprised that you're going to get the return of the patach and the accent shift, because it's the light consonantal, and this will be remaining the hic. Okay. And then over here, kind of the same thing. You're going to keep that infixed heroic yod with the hic, t, lu, with the accent, right? And that accent is basically just showing you that you want a vocal schwa there, but you can't have one because of the infixed heroic yod. And then this is about the same with the consonantal endings, except you're not going to have the accent shift. They're heavy. Tall tem. Oops. Well, let's pretend that that's the right place for it, because I have the template, and we're going to skip that one, and then it'll be hic tall 10. Push the button, sorry. Hic tall 10, and then hic tall nu, right? So not too difficult. Again, if you know katal, katala, katalta, katalti, kitalu, kitaltem, kitalten, kitalnu. This is the second, just for clarification, this is the second person plural masculine. But the notion, of course, that it's the same as katal with a prefixed heric, a hey plus heric, and then an infixed heric yod that's going to go away with consonantal endings. It's once, again, just katal, katala, katalta, kataltum, with all those rules with the vocalic endings, the light consonantal and the heavy consonantal. Those are what is driving the conjugations as we go forward. You're just getting a little addition of dots, right? Now, with that being said, we're going to have some difficulty with the imperfect. So let me switch over to the imperfect. Oops, it won't let me do that for some reason. Let's try something else. I'm going to go back to this, don't save, and then come back to this. All right, so now we're going to have the imperfect. And I'm going to give you the first form, and then you can try it yourself as you go along and come back and see. So the first form is complicated. Let's go ahead and have that the prefixed hey, no vowels yet, and the infixed heric yod is what we're going to be used to seeing, right? So the imperfects are a preformative verb conjugation, right? That aspect. So it's going to be yiktol, tiktol, yik, tik, 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 ektol with the yiktali, or the tiktali down there. Yiktalu, tiktolna, tiktalu, tiktolna, tik, or niktol, right? So you have all those preforms necessary, so you add the preform at the front. Now here's where it gets tricky. So the actual performative is, and this is very important, you cannot skip this step, is a schwa followed by a patach, just like you would in the PAL. But hold on, don't pause yet and try to do the rest of them, even though you'd probably get them right. It's going to be yahaktil, and you can hear it already. With the yod and the schwa, it's going to be yaktil, right? And this is the actual grammar. This is not the Masoretes doing. This is how it's written. It's going to be yaktil. So instead of the yod, schwa, hey, patach, you're going to see the yod followed by a patach. That's the feet of the cloak and dagger hey, hiding behind the curtains, as I've said, So we're not going to get rid of that one very easily. So this is what it's going to look like if I could get it erased. Quicker. Okay. So you're going to see that as the Hiphil imperfect third singular masculine, right? Yaktil. Now pause the video and you can do the rest without looking, right? And now that you've unpaused, here's the rest of them. So it's going to be yik, tick, 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 x. So we're going to add the tak, ak, right? So get those dog eshes in there and those schwas. Let's get the infixed heric yod in there. Taktil, yik, tick, tick, tick. Yep, taktil. Dogish line, tak, tili, right? It's going to want a schwa here, but because it's an infixed heric yod and a vocalic ending, you're going to get the accent shift and then octil, right? So no problem so far. We're going to move over and do the plurals now. It's going to be the same kind of issues. you're going to see yak, tak, 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 right? Or ak, yeah, knock, tak, tak, tak. And I can't get it out of my head. Knock. There we go. So, knock teal, tak. Let's see now. Is it going to keep the infixed yod, or is it going to do something else? And that's the question here with the imperfects on that side. See, now, so far we've gotten this far. We're going to expect, and let me go up to the top and work from there. Yak, teal. We're going to expect tak, tolna, right? Well, what about tak, talna? Like in the PL, it won't work that way. You are going to get a sere instead. I don't know why. Taktailna, but that's what it is. So that's one adjustment you're going to have to make from whatever it was you guessed. Taktilu. Oops. Yeah, I'm out of order a little bit. Taktilu. And then taktailna. That's not a bad mistake to make if you happen to write a patak or something there, but it's never going to work, right? It's just not what it is. And so you have to learn that sere underneath the second syllable. So yaktilu, taktailna, taktilu, taktailna, noctil. Okay? Now, to derive from that and get all our stuff, what would the imperfect be? Or sorry, the imperative be? So you go to your second persons, and this is your instinct, which would be the right instinct, is to just tear that off, right? And there's your imperatives, but that's not right. I'm going to fix this real quick. In fact, let's go back. Oops. Let's go back and actually do this in the longhand way. See, this is not actually taktil. This one here. This is actually tahaktil, and you're taking off the preform, not the prefix. See? So what happens is the tau disappears and the hey returns. That's your imperative, haktil, except we're not quite done yet. The imperatives are really going to try to shorten up. Why do they do that? I don't know. They just do. So the infixed heric yod is going to disappear in the second singular masculine. Okay? So you're going to get haktail. Okay? Now, what about the rest of them? Well, the imperative for the feminine singular is going to show the same kind of move. It's going to remove the preform and then add back the hey. Now, because it's an infixed heric yod and it isn't just a short form, I don't mean a special form, short form. I just mean it ain't short. It's got an A form on it. It's going to hang on to it like that. So it's going to be haktili. And the same thing over here in the plurals. You're going to have the removal of the preform and the prefix returns. Haktilu, right? And this is where the vowels become important. And, you've heard me say, well, this is the easy part of Hebrew. It is. It just depends on how you're framing your learning, whether or not you're learning just the paradigms and being able to kind of bulldoze your way through the exercises, or whether you're learning the rules and you can actually reason your way through with adjustments, right? This is going to require an adjustment, just minor adjustments, right? So yeah, you get all those things. Now, what about the jussives and the cohortatives? Well, the jussives are going to kind of shorten up as well. So instead of having heric yod infix with the shorter forms, you're going to get a change like that, yak tail. And the short form over there is going to do the same thing. The feminine because it's a short form, no A form, right? That's the point when I say short form. No A form. It's going to have the two dots, the sere, cocktail. Now, what about over here with some form on them, with some A forms on them? Well, what do you think? We've got some rules in place. I think they're going to keep those forms, and that's going to be the pattern. Is the things that don't have A forms on them are going to try to shorten up, and the things with A forms on them aren't going to shorten up. And that's kind of what you have here. So now, getting into the cohortative, well, you try to add a commate's hey, don't you? And that's what we're going to do. So we add the commate's hey. Sorry, I got lost. There it is. Commate's hey. And we're going to try to add the vocal schwa, but we're not because we've got an infixed here at yod, and so we're going to get an accent. So you see the patterns emerging, right? It's going to try to add the vocal schwa as usual, but because there's an infixed here at yod, you get an accent shift. And that's all the imperatives. Now, what about the infinitives? Well, the infinitives are goofy. I don't know if you ever rode skateboard, but you're supposed to, if you're riding any kind of skateboard riding, this is stuff you learned back in the 80s when you're an 80s kid. You ride with your left foot on the front of the skateboard. So you're moving, your body is actually moving, and how do you do that? With the left foot going first, right? And some of us were goofy-footed, meaning we swapped feet, and I preferred to ride with my right foot going first. Now, of course, the acrobatics required for skateboarding meant that you had to learn how to do both, but there was a tendency sort of like hitting lefty and hitting righty. But you don't, in baseball, you don't hit goofy, so it doesn't work there. But the infinitives, nonetheless, are goofy. So let's get those up. So you are going to have the hey prefix. Man, that is such a bad habit. The hey prefix for the infinitive construct, and you would expect for the infinitive construct to be the shorter form because that's what we've had, both for the PAL and for the katal, the call format. But instead, you get the shorter form in the Hiphil, tail, and the infinitive. Sorry, I said that exactly backwards, right? It's going to be the longer form because you expect the shorter form, right? I'm saying it right, but doing it wrong. That's the infinitive construct. Okay. And for the infinitive absolute, you get the short form. And I don't know, I'm going to check to make sure this isn't on my head. All right, good. It's still going to have the hey prefix. And this one's going to look like the imperative masculine singular. But that's the infinitive absolute. I think that infinitive construct, infinitive absolute, is the most difficult thing in the conjugation. The rest of it is just slight adjustments, right? Now let's take a look at the book and get on with some problems, the real problems. Switching over to the book. Close that up. All right, remember to buy the book. We did all that. All that's right. Infinitive is similar to the imperatives. The opposite of what would be expected. Oh, I forgot about the participles. But, you get a main prefix, right? You get the main prefix, and you're fine. And nothing to worry about there. It's machtil, in other words, but it's machtil. And all that stuff, machtila, machtilim, machtiloth. Notice that the accents are all the way to the end. Now, what about the function? Before we get into the variations, what about the function? It commonly adds a causative sense to the call meaning, and that's about right. That's its major function. We do that in several ways in English, except we always use helping words. I kind of mentioned that when I introduced the verb system. We say cause a lot. I caused the king to kill the servant, right? I made the king kill the servant, right? The go verbs, verbs of motion. I caused the people of Israel. Oh, excuse me. I caused the people of Israel to come up out of Egypt, right? I brought them out of Egypt. That's how we have causation built into one of those verbs like that, and things along those lines, right? That's what causation is. So your verbal root yatsa, to go out, the cause to go out, bring out. See, that's what that is. The verbal root shuv, Israel returned, caused to return, brought back. Okay. If it's transitive already, you're going to get double causation. The king killed the prophet in the call, and the Hiphil, the king caused the servant to kill the prophet. So you've got two direct objects, and you'll have two definite direct object markers. It's just double causation, and that's how they understood it, or double objective. There's a better way to say it than double causation, because it's not double causation, but it is double causation. It is, but it isn't. It isn't, but it is. Look at your advanced grammars. The verbal root avad, serve, right? Egypt caused Israel to serve other gods. See, in the Hiphil. Not too much trouble there. Some have patterns that are not predictable, and that's why you have to have a good lexicon at hand, generally speaking, and study it. Do your word studies. When it comes to something like the verbal root yatav, in the call it means to be good. It's kind of stative, I think. And then the Hiphil is to do something well. Well, they're related, right? But it's just like, yeah, how do you get from the call to the Hiphil and know that it means to do something well? You have to work at it. By the way, the lexicon is built on usage. We just do the best we can with a lexicon. There is no such thing as a dictionary, because there's nobody alive who speaks classical Hebrew. There's a lexicon, which is a record of reading, and you can argue with a lexicon. You can't argue with a dictionary because it's authoritative. And that's what all the arguments are about when the dictionary changes definitions, especially when they change on a whim, right? To make righteous, but it's that forensic thing, the tzadak verb there, to be righteous, to make righteous. Well, yeah, but are we declaring righteous? How does that, all that stuff, how does all that stuff work? And that's a theological question and doctrinal in nature, and that's where a lot of arguments are. What is the definition of tzadak? Doesn't matter. How is it being used? Let's get into the pit of mud and wrestle. And whichever one of us emerges wins, but you never emerge from the mud pit, right? And that's what makes theology enjoyable. As long as you don't get swords out. It's a mud pit. Don't use swords in a mud pit. It's like the backwards Chicago way. Never bring a gun to a mud fight, okay? There's a sermon there. You hear it. The verbal root naka, favorite verb in the whole world. Look at that. It's a first nun and a third hey. Oh, yes, that's right. So naka is going to go to vayak. It's going to lose its nun and its hey. Yasha, I forgot to do the imperfect vowel consecutive. I skipped it. I just now realized I did. It's going to shorten up too. Remembering that there is a historic preterite, and the vowel consecutive is preserving it in a lot of forms. And in the Hiphil, you still have a preterite, and it's basically a shortened up imperfect. So it's going to be vayak tail. That's naka gets it because the nun assimilates, the hey disappears, it's apocryphated, and you get vayak. He smote, and it is everywhere in the Bible. Yasha, to save, doesn't have a call conjugation meaning. It's a Hiphil meaning. It doesn't mean cause to save. It means to save. Yeah. Irregular, or as I constantly say, remember this book is a couple of decades old, and it's all right. It's a very good book, but it uses these terms that can be a little bit I don't want to say confusing, because there's nothing confusing, less than concise or whatever. They're not irregular. They are variations, right? They're normal variations. because there are real irregular forms. Um, Guttural letters pose familiar problems, especially the preference for the composite schwa. You're going to get this composite schwa thing in the first gutturals. Second gutturals, second guttural. Oh, there's no second guttural problem. Third gutturals. Sorry, you're going to show the furtive patok every now and again. Just kind of get used to these things. How are you going to mess up yashma? You know it's going to be the jussive of the third singular masculine once you realize that it's yak tail, right? And it's just sort of like, oh yeah, third guttural. They do that goofy thing. You still have to learn it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I am saying that it shouldn't be like terribly difficult. Yashma is not yashmiya, that kind of thing. Just keep working at it. Repetition. By the way, if you get just absolutely bogged down, just drop me a note. Somehow, it doesn't matter how many years later. I love teaching Hebrew, and I will help you. First, nun roots will show assimilation of the nun through the Hiphil, right? That's what I was talking about with naka. Here's natsal, and it's going to have that assimilation throughout, right? Now, I kind of motored through those because of the first yod, first wow. For some reason, here in example 17, for some reason there was a problem for the Hebrew speaker with this hiatus. Is it the right word? When you cram two things together? I can't remember. You bump things together, and for some reason they could not say hiv, sh, or whatever. Instead, that hirik yod, the hey plus the hirik plus the wow plus the schwa, they just went, oh, forget it. We'll pronounce it ho. That one is entirely unfair. So this is a paradigm you should learn as you go through the Hiphil chapter. You need to learn ho, sheev, to, sheev, to, sheev, to, shiva, to, well, I'm doing the wrong thing. Yeah, that's right. I was doing the right thing. To, shivi. But let's do the ho, sheev, ho, shiva, ho, sheev, ho, shavta, ho, shav, to, shavta, right? So let's take a look and see how I did. Well, it's in the back. You have to look in the back of the book. I thought it was going to be in the next page, but it's not. Right? And so that's your first yod, first wow problem coming back. And it's going to obey all the rules otherwise. But this one is really, really tricky, right? Understanding that you've come from yashav to ho, sheev. Right? Where did that O vowel come from? It's the first yod, first wow verb, and it's the wow showing back. There's the first yod verbs. They retain the yod, which becomes a mater letter. So instead of yativ, you're going to get hey-tiv. Okay. Hollow roots are somewhat more complicated, but follow general principles. They are hollow in the perfect. Oh yeah, I forgot about hollow roots. You're going to have basically two full paradigms. Almost. Yeah, it's going to follow the pattern, and you're going to get hey kamta, hey kamte, hey kamti, as you can see quite clearly. I wish I could point up to it. Oh, wrong direction. But my hand gets swallowed into the void there. And then you get this thing with the helping holum. Hakimotha, hakimoth, hakimothi. See? I'm just waiting for the screams to subside. You have to learn three paradigms. Katal, Hiktiel, right? You have to learn Yashav, Hoshiv, and you have to learn Kum, Hakim, and then the appropriate helping holum thing. And there's the imperfect. It's going to show the commates underneath the preform, but it's going to keep an infixed hierarchy throughout, except for that one form over there. You're going to have the same issues with the imperatives. It loses the preform, but not the prefix. So it's going to be Hakim. Okay. And then you get a shortened up second syllable. Instead of Vayakim, instead of Vayakim, you're going to get Vayakim. And that you should be used to. All right. So you do have a little bit of overlap with the infixed hierarchy yod hollow roots. Context is your key. You'll be asked to produce both on a quiz and test and stuff like that. But in context, it'll clear itself up. And there's some lovely sentences to help you practice that. Okay. So there you go. Nothing really surprising there. Infinitives are predictable. Participle is a preform main, but the vowel is a sere. Don't know why. I'm not the one who makes the rules. But just remember, you don't have a PL in the hollow roots, so it won't be a problem. Okay. Third hey, just look for the infixed or the prefix. The imperfect loses that infix. That's just because the third hey does that. Notice the imperfect while consecutive shows the shift of the accent to the preformative, and the third hey falls away upon occupation. The resulting form, Vayavan, develops in a similar way to the seglet patterns with an initial A vowel and becomes Vayevan. Yep, it does. And then you get Vayevan as the call, right? That one's about subtlety. You have to know that Vayevan comes from Vayavan somehow. Sorry. And then there's the imperatives and jussives and such. This is all about paradigms. So I encourage you, and if you're in a class of mine, you're going to have to sit down and learn paradigms before you do the exercises. In fact, you're going to have a quiz the next time we meet, which will basically say, write the paradigm from memory, right? And it's going to be the third hey, the hollow root, not the third hey, the hollow root, all the forms of the hollow root, all the forms of the first yod, first wow, and then katal, of course, hiktil. So you have to do all three of those from memory with the imperatives and the infinitives. Yeah, that's about it. There you go. Infinitives are predictable, summary of Hiphil, and so on and so forth. Yeah, sorry it's not so exciting, but that's it. I mean, and then you go after that, then you'll do the exercises, and you take another day on the exercises and despair for a while, and then realize you still have 6 more to go. But it's all good. In all honesty, you're being introduced to the H stem. This is it. When you drop into the passive and to the reflexive, it gets a lot faster because you already know all the problems. The nifal is going to be a little tricky in the imperatives, right? Then that's the next chapter, but it really is just that as the problem. You're going to be going, what is this? And then, oh yeah, that's right, it's the nifal. But in terms of the whole verb conjugation system, now you know the call, the what did I call it? The neutral. Now you know the D stem, which is the PL, and the pual and the Hiphil are going to just be easy peasy. And then the Hiphil, the H stem, and then you're going to have Hofal and Hishtafel. And remember, the Hishtafel has just one verb that shows up on occasion. And you already know what it is. You prostrate yourself and pray, and it's easy. That's it. Okay? So it has been my pleasure, again, to bring you through this. This one's a little bit paradigm heavy, but you'll enjoy it after you master it. But until then, work hard and enjoy the journey. And we'll see you again very soon.